Welcome to the Above Center Leadership Podcast. I'm Marcy.
And I'm Allison, and this is our chance to learn from leaders who know how to get results while staying above center.
Let's get started. Allison, I'm so excited for our next guest. We are excited to have Karen you here with us because when we thought about doing this podcast, we really wanted to interview people that we felt understood the premise of living above center and leadership above center and making choices to be there. And when I think about your role and your background and anybody that's in the business of people like you are with HR, I can't think of a better person to join us and share your story with us. So Karen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here, Marcy.
Absolutely. Well, tell us, let's get started with right now you're working with All Elite Wrestling in charge of their culture and people and HR. I'd love to just help our audience know a little bit more about how you got into this world of professional wrestling and being the culture keeper for them.
Oh, that's a fun thing to answer. What a whirlwind it has been. So I started my career in corporate human resources. I was a consultant and got to be introduced to a lot of great business practices under a lot of really talented consultants. So they taught me their tips and tricks. And then I went into a corporate office that kind of did everything right. They left no room for mistakes or loose ends. And so I was very, very used to a very strict culture with strict rules. And after 15 years there, I decided it was time for a career change, maybe some time off. And so I did take a little bit of time off, and one day a recruiter reached out to me and offered me a job that I fell in love with, and she didn't tell me where it was yet, but soon enough I found out it was with All Elite Wrestling. So, to go from a corporate office where there's strict rules to a company where people are sometimes allowed to hit each other was quite a shift. But I find that people are people wherever you go. So the same processes and vision works regardless of industry.
And so what I love about the work that you do is you have such a professionalism on the right ways to do HR, because if you don't have the systems and processes in place, it's really hard for people to show up to work and lead effectively. And there's a level of consistency, but you're also dealing with a unique culture that it is professional wrestling. You are dealing with, I know you call them the actors, that are on stage, but there's the back office and everybody supporting them from the camera crews and everybody. So how do you kind of create culture or nurture culture that has the balance of the best practices that you instill with allowing it to be a very creative environment that is non-corporate America?
Great question. I feel like there's a lot to be said there. So I think one thing is the leadership team having a crystal clear vision and repeating that so often that anybody can answer very quickly what the company intends to achieve. And then no matter what industry you're in, I think it has to do with getting to know people and building trust. Change is a hard thing to ask people to do, and they certainly aren't going to embrace it if you don't understand their world and care about the impact on them. So that's how I approach it. I got to get to know people and develop trust, understand their world, and then just kind of introduce mine slowly and surely. I don't want to abrupt anything or be a shock anyone or stop what they have going on, but just getting to know people, building trust, having a clear vision, and repeating that often.
Well, Karen, that just is perfect, because I believe one of your favorite quotes is people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care, which I believe is Teddy Roosevelt. And it just sounds to me like you care a lot.
Yeah, honestly, I was brought up in a very task-oriented world. I always looked at the outcome and I pushed very, very hard for the outcome. And sometimes I left some people being bounced out of the way, and that was young in my career. And I quickly learned that I thought I was a leader, but there was no one behind me, type of thing. And it was a journey. It was a professional journey. Also for myself, it was a spiritual journey where when I tried to manage myself out of those preferences, it didn't work really well. But somewhere in there, I found a heart change and I just fell in love with people and I wanted to understand their journey and their expectations. And then I found in living that out, you create partnerships with people when you're really interested in their success. And then you have the relationship where you can give true, honest feedback and be vulnerable with each other. I really think that's where growth can happen.
Yeah, and when you're doing that, can you give us like a little insight? So I definitely feel that you're right about building trust, but there's sometimes you have to make really tough decisions because you are here joined together through work. And so how do you balance, fostering the individuality and building trust and things like that, but sometimes you have to make tough decisions that are right for the company. How do you keep that how do you keep the team motivated when you still have to make tough decisions?
Yeah, I think honesty is the key. I want to get to know you and I want to be really transparent about what it is that I'm trying to achieve. And I think through that, you build a common understanding. And I think people understand that you're here to hit a target and that you're going to be transparent with them along the way. I'm very open that change is difficult, but we're going to march through it together hand in hand, and that we'll be better off in the long run. So I think pointing people towards the target that you're trying to achieve and always, always being transparent with your processes and your systems. If people feel like they're seen and heard and cared about, they will trust the process.
Mhm. That's so well said. So well said. So with us, we use the framework above center where you know who you are and you meet people above center in this place of confidence, in the place of your uniqueness. And I think what you're saying is you help people kind of know what's expected and you kind of have that predictability with the systems and processes, but through trust, allow people to be their individual selves. Can you talk to us more about how you help, like, just say if there's somebody on your team that's stressed and they're feeling below center, and whether that's because of fear or because of insecurities or it's because of stress and just overwhelm, how do you get them to meet you above center so you can align on where you're headed and then make decisions and have a conversation from an above center point of view?
Love that. So I just acknowledge where we are. I'm happy to say, gosh, I'm feeling a really emotionally hijacked right now. I don't even feel like I can focus on facts because I'm feeling so hijacked. How do you feel? And if they feel the same, I always say, let's make a list of the emotions we're having. Let's just get it out. And we write them all down. And then it's like out and we feel heard and we're acknowledging how hard whatever it is going to be. And then I say, that's awesome. I'm glad we got that out. Let's flip the page. Now we're going to write facts.
Mm.
Right? And then the facts have to feed the process. The emotions can't. I always say emotions are a good way for us to measure what we're doing, and they tell if there's an oh no, but we cannot let our emotions drive our processes. So I just like to acknowledge that emotions are real. Let's get them out. Let's have a plan to deal with them, but in no way can that interfere with the process we're creating.
You know what's so simple about that is the two-page. The first page is honoring where they are. And then the second page, alignment of facts, because facts you can really align on, even if you don't like the facts,
Yes.
you can align on the facts. Some people see certain facts, like if you see, say stock market goes down, that is a fact. Some people see it as, wow, some of my favorite stocks are on sale. Some people see it as total fear, like, wow, I may be in debt for the rest of my life. Like the feelings on the first page and the facts, you could have different emotions around that. So do you ever find when you get to the facts stage that it evokes different feelings and you still need to almost go back to a third page of like what are the ones that are most important, or how do we kind of move forward from here? How do you kind of balance when people look at facts differently?
So I think after we've gotten our emotions out, they feel less heavy and less weighted. And then once we turn to the facts, I find that people really leave the emotion in the past and then they're able to focus on the target, right? And I think the facts help adjust or shift some of those emotions. But at any point during a project or a process, will acknowledge this feels really stressful. This feels really scary. This feels really new. Let's just acknowledge it. We're probably all feeling the same way. All right, now button up your shirt and let's go chase those facts and let's get our process done, right? So we can acknowledge our emotions, but we don't want to spend time on them. If they're not serving us well, let's move on from that.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. It's really like allowing people to take ownership of their future. So Allison, you're so good about like basically being our chief story officer and knowing that any day you have a blank page when you wake up, what are the words you're going to choose to write on your page because you're in charge of writing your story despite the facts. So I feel like that's so similar to like what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. Every day we start a new story, but we never know how the story is going to end. So we can always write the new ending because we are just living it out. So it is true when we start to focus on those emotions. But that whole idea of what we know about ourselves, but what other people see in us are two different sides of that coin. So we know our own emotions, and then the facts are what are in the middle. But what other people see is another angle from that. So when other people see something else, how do you try to help people reconcile that?
When they see their emotions stronger than the facts, is that kind of what you mean?
If somebody else has a different story than what, so one person has one story, one person has another story. How do you help reconcile that? How do you help people try to remain above center?
Yeah, that's probably the toughest one. What I like to do is hear both people out and and then try to help them influence each other. And if we get to a spot where I feel like there's not going to be any more meetings of the mind, we just write down the facts that we agree on. And then the leader has to make a decision and come back and say, I've heard you out. I've heard your concerns. I've heard this. I've heard this. I've considered everything. And going forward, this is what we're going to try to achieve.
It's so important because I do agree that people, like you said, they want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be validated that they're whether it's their feelings, their thoughts, their experience are seen. And at the same time, they actually want to go forward. Like really need a leader like you to make decisions and be like, okay, based on this, we are making this decision. And if you kind of continue to the path of like, trust, we're going to do the right things, like we have to at some point make a decision to move forward. I think people are relieved with somebody like, okay, I've drawn a line in the sand. We are going to move forward. This is our decision. Let's figure out how to get on board with it. And you do that so well. Can I ask a question about building trust with the virtual workforce? So you went to fully virtual, like your entire company's virtual, even though some of them happens to be based in your same town. Um, what are the complexities to build trust? And any advice to our community of how to kind of foster trust in that virtual world?
Well, what I've realized is it's taking about 18 months longer than it does when you're in an office with people. But one of the neat things that I've found is it's easier to get one-on-one time when you're remote because you schedule a virtual video meeting and we have each other's undivided attention. In a corporate office, sometimes people come in, knock, knock, or I've got to run, but you really have people's undivided attention. So it's been important to me to make a few cold calls, which I kind of hate doing. But if you haven't met someone and you've worked here for 8 months, I just do it. I just call and tell them my name, ask them a little bit about their history. That way there's at least a touch point and we know each other's names. So I would say the trust that I've built in this environment is actually deeper. It's just not as widespread yet.
Mhm.
It's just going to take a little more time.
Yeah, I could see that. Are you finding that people like what's the balance with people being more open to kind of sharing who they are because they're in their home and maybe their kids are in the background or there's just like life behind them? Are you finding it's almost easier to get to know them or is it harder to get to know them because I don't know if you told one of our clients told a story about they couldn't play the two truths and a lie because nobody saw each other's wedding hands. Like they've been such on a virtual team for so long. They had no idea like are you married or you not? Because they would just show up on these group calls all the time. So there was so much they didn't know about each other because the screen can mask a lot of things. So are
Mhm.
you finding that it's easier to get to know them because they're at home, or
Well,
is
I
it
think it depends on the
harder?
person.
Yeah.
People who are really open, I see their kids running behind them. Their husband will come behind with a quick kiss when he leaves. And so you really get to know a lot about the person. And then there are people who are very, very guarded, who you are not going to get to know with one phone call or maybe even five. So those are the peoples we do get together at our shows every once in a while. And those are the people I seek out for the handshake. But just knowing that they're more in a shell. And I think even in a corporate office, when you see those folks every day, folks who prefer to be in a shell are always going to be a little bit in a shell. But I make it a point to reach out to everyone, do the handshake, let them know that I care about them and I'm interested in their story. So at least if they want to reach out, they can. But some people never will. And that's okay. It's okay. As long as we keep our fingers on the pulse, we should generally know where we're needed and where we're not. So I just give the people allowance to kind of be as close to an HR person as they want to be, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I am sure some of our listeners are very curious how you go from an international shipping company, very, very intentional with their HR processes and policies, having that broad of employee base, to then professional wrestling. So tell us, like, what does HR look like when you're in a totally different environment? How much is transferable, or how much is it same story, different culture?
I love that question, Marcy. The HR is the same. The people are different. Their histories are different. Their education and experience are different. Their approach is different. I feel like there's a little more education here. A lot of our talent didn't come from any corporate office. They only know how things are done in a ring. Believe it or not, I have no idea how things are done in a ring. Um, But HR processes are the same. We still want to motivate people to take care of themselves, to be lifelong learners, to avoid conflict, but know how to deal with it maturely when it happens, to reach out to others when you feel like you've hit a page where you can't do it yourself. So it's very, very similar. I will say the issues that run by my desk are very, very different. I mean, my first week I started here, I looked down on my calendar and had a meeting with somebody named Jungle Boy, and I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. But I found out that Jungle Boy acts the same as the accountant at my previous job, right? He just might talk a little differently, but needs are the same and human beings are the same.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what gives you confidence is when you are switching careers, and so often you get so much experience from a certain company. I know I felt this way, like I grew up with one company, and then when you go to make a switch, it feels so big to make that switch. But for people that want to make a switch, you realize your skills are your skills and your discipline is your discipline. It's just a different, logo or culture, and how you learn on how to connect with people is really the name of the game.
Yeah, and where I was super blessed in this is that the company I joined was a startup. It was only about 5 years old, and they really needed a lot of the 101 HR processes. And when you come from a very mature organization, I won't say I did this was without challenges, the shift, but some of the things I could almost do in my sleep. So I do feel like every job that we're in is like a master's degree program. And I think I did a good job acknowledging that while I was learning, but man, I didn't realize the impact that it would have. So every job that we have, every human being that we work with will influence and grow us. And it's all just going to help us be stronger and to be able to transfer those skills to different environments and industries.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, I'd love to ask a last question and go personal with you. So when we think about the above center, it's a mindset. It's like choosing to be who you want to be more often and staying above that. But when you fall below center, you can accidentally create habits where people see you in that overly rushed state, or that stress state, or the complaining state, or something like that. How does the quote that you love, this people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, how does that anchor your leadership to stay more above center and stay focused on, the feelings and the traits and the thoughts and the actions that represent who you want to be more often? So I'd love to know how that quote kind of inspires you to be the leader you know you are.
Absolutely. It takes me out of one of my own ways of handling things, which is that I become very impatient and very goal oriented. And when that happens to me, I don't become a very good listener. And when I realize that to hit my target means I have to influence people, that means they have to trust me. And so I just hear myself getting quick and short and impatient. And at that point, I reset just by knowing that this won't serve me well. There have been times where I've had to say, guys, I got to jump off this call. Between you and I'm emotionally hijacked and I need to go take a deep breath. But I know where I am is ineffective. It will not serve me or the organization well. And I have to pause the work until I can get to that mindset, or hopefully just reminding myself of what leads to success is always people and always relationships and always trust. Once you remember how important that is, you kind of get rid of your temper tantrum, right? and just do what big grown-ups do.
Moving forward and people first. I love it. That's fantastic. So Karen, it has been so awesome to have you on the Above Center podcast.
Thank you for what you do for everyone out there. You guys have really helped me to embrace the right mindset, and I love what you do. So thank you for serving us all.
Well, the feeling is mutual. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation like we did. And we look forward to seeing you in another episode.
Oh, you have your mug?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I kept wanting to take a drink, but
Oh,
Oh my gosh, Marcy, that was so funny.
I think she's the best. I think she's so awesome.
All right. So how did she get to All Elite Wrestling?
All right, so crazy story. She ended up leaving her corporate role because she really wanted to do something virtual. So she got used to being at home during the COVID days, and she really liked like being there for her boys and as a single mom. So she ended up just being super patient and just kept networking and applying for jobs that were virtual. And it's one of those stories of her patience and confidence just paid off, and she found this awesome job. She
Well,
literally, when she found out, she's like, I can't even believe I am about to do this. Like chief people officer of a wrestling company.
all right. So I thought that was so funny. She said she didn't even know how the ring works. I'm like, you know what? We need to press her to figure that out because I'd love to hear the backstory of how wrestling works behind the scenes.
Oh, I went to one of her shows. We went, a few of us went with our kids down to watch the shows, and you could see the whole production, and it's crazy. Like it's so it's amazing.
That,
We should do behind the scenes of the podcast.
I love that. I love that. It's great. All right. Well, hey, it was great seeing you again
Always fun. Love being with you.
because it's better together.
Always.
Bye.
Learn more at thererebelcompanies.com.
That was fun.